Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Rebecca, aka the Lazy Bookworm, and in this video I am going to discuss Samuel Butler's Erewhon and how it was inspired by my homeland, New Zealand. I am from New Zealand. I'm actually currently living in New Zealand. I'm currently living in the biggest city, which is Auckland in the North Island, and we have just under 2 million people. New Zealand as a whole I think has under 5 million people, might be even over 5 million people now, and it is divided into two islands, North Island and South Island, and it is at the bottom of the world. It is right at the bottom of the world. New Zealand is actually one of the Commonwealth countries. Our head of state, like in Britain, is Queen Elizabeth. No, actually, I'm wrong now. King Charles III. New Zealand is famous for many things. Most recently, New Zealand is perhaps probably more famous to some of you as the location for the 3 Lord of the Rings films. Something that New Zealand has always been famous for, it's a little less now, but it's always been famous for its sheep. For some weird reason, we tend to have a lot of sheep. There was one point where the sheep population outnumbered the human population. That's how many sheep we had. From the 1840s onwards, there was a large migration of people from England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, as well as other countries to New Zealand. One of them was the English novelist Samuel Butler, who came to New Zealand and lived here from 1859 to 1864. So he wasn't here that long. What did old Samuel Butler do once he came to New Zealand? Well, to go back to the whole sheep thing, he went to the South Island, to the Canterbury area. All this talk about New Zealand and our love of sheep and Samuel Butler leads me on to his most famous book, Erewhon, published in 1872. Apart from being influenced by New Zealand, it was also influenced by Charles Darwin, and many of Darwin's ideas you can kind of see in the book, particularly the chapters which are called the Book of the Machines. It is a utopian novel, although not like perhaps like a straight utopian novel like, you know, Thomas More's Utopia. There are some dark aspects to this novel. According to Wikipedia, it can be perhaps closely compared to William Morris's News from Nowhere, which was published about 20 years later in 1890. It is also a satire on Victorian society, particularly Victorian attitudes towards crime and punishment and religion. And the book is told from the perspective of Higgs, who is our narrator, who gets lost while exploring the terrain of New Zealand and finds this place called Erewhon, which is quite a mysterious place. Higgs is received into Erewhon, and you know, he lives with his family and is introduced to Erewhonian. Is that a word? Erewhonian? He's introduced to the life and society, the customs and the laws of Erewhon. He falls in love. I like this book. I can't say I loved it, and I can't say it's one of my favourites. It's probably not one of the favourites I've read so far in Victober. It was hard for me to read it without thinking of and imagining New Zealand, especially the South Island. As I said, he satirised Victorian society in this book, and I feel I would have got more of his sort of satire if I'd known more about sort of Victorian society at that time. I really did like how it was written in the first person. One thing I really liked was the narrator Higgs's constant references to England and how he compares the customs of Erewhon to England. I actually thought that was quite nice. The ending did seem kind of not rushed but a little inevitable to me. I won't tell you the ending, but it did seem inevitable. As I said, this book was inspired by Darwin, and that influence comes out a lot in his collection of chapters titled The Book of the Machines. He describes how in the past Erewhon was developing and using machines, and how in the end they kind of destroyed the machines because the machines were essentially gaining consciousness and evolving, and there was a fear that the machines were going to take over, and so the people freaked out and they totally destroyed the machines. I'm not surprised this has got a lot of attention, because today we are fearful that AI technology is going to evolve to the point that us mere humans are no longer needed. I would like to read this book again. I feel I maybe rushed through some of the book, I admit. So I would actually like to take my time with it. But I really wanted to read this book because it is a Victorian classic, and it's a Victorian classic that's inspired by my homeland. That's why it has a bit of a special connection to me. And also because I do like utopian and dystopian literature. My brief discussion of Samuel Butler's book Erewhon and how it was influenced by my homeland, New Zealand. If you have read Erewhon, can you please comment what you thought about it? Was it good? And also tell me how your Victober is going. Mine is going really well. I think I'm maybe not ahead, but yeah, I'm going along quite nicely, so I'm pleased with that. And yes, I will see you next video.